Now, we have said in weeks past that the book of Matthew is hard to outline because there's so much in it that it's just kind of hard to organize it in our thinking. But if I were to put a heading over chapters 8 and 9, the heading I would put over chapters 8 and 9 would be the power of Jesus. Through chapter 8 and most of chapter 9, we see 10 miracles. And we're going to take a look at those miracles tonight, okay? So, Matthew chapter 8, verses 1 through 4, it says, when Jesus came down from the mountainside, this is after the Sermon on the Mount, okay? When Jesus came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. I am willing, he said, be clean. Immediately he was cleansed of his leprosy. Then Jesus said to him, see that you don't tell anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest and offer the gift Moses commanded as a testimony to them. So this is miracle number 1. Miracle number 1, okay? And Jesus heals a leper. Today we have a different name usually used than leprosy, called Hansen's disease. Hansen's disease. And Hansen's disease is a disease caused by bacteria, so it's highly contagious. And it affects the skin, the peripheral nerves, the upper respiratory tract, and the eyes. Now, here in the United States, we usually think that this is just a disease that was around during Bible times. But according to the World Health Organization, more than 200,000 cases of leprosy are reported every year. Yep. And usually less than 200 new cases are reported in the United States per year. But last year, 20% of the new cases in the United States occurred in Central Florida. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Now, the things that I had read at that time where they thought apparently armadillo carry the bacteria, and they had thought some people had come into contact with the armadillo, and that's what was causing it. Don't know that that was ever confirmed. But in the Old Testament, they had laws concerning skin diseases, and this leprosy would be included in that. Leviticus 13 talks about how the priests are to inspect the person who has swelling or a rash or shiny spots on their skin. And if certain things are evident, the person is declared unclean. And that meant that they were cut off from worshiping God. When a person offered a sacrifice, not only was the sacrifice to be clean and without blemish, we know that, right? Lamb without blemish, we talk about that, especially around Christmas. But so was the person offering it. The person offering it was to be clean. And so a person with leprosy in Bible times was cut off from God and cut off from people because spiritual uncleanness was transferable. Not only was the disease contagious, but if you were a clean person and you came into contact with someone or something unclean, that made you unclean. That's why Leviticus chapter 13, verses 45 and 46 says, anyone with such a defiling disease must wear torn clothes, let their hair be unkempt, cover the lower part of their face, and cry out, unclean, unclean. As long as they have the disease, they remain unclean. They must live alone. They must live outside the camp. And so a person who was a leper experienced a very lonely, demeaning existence. And that's this person. But it's kind of interesting because there are several things here in this description that reveal this leper's faith. So what are some of the things that you see here in chapter 8, verses 1 through 4, that reveal the leper's faith? He believed in the power of Jesus. He also submitted to the will of Jesus. He came to Jesus with reverence. So yeah. And it says here that large crowds were following Jesus as this happened. Now, Jesus reached out his hand and touched this man. What do you think the crowd's reaction was to see Jesus reach out and touch a leper? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Huge gasp. What is he doing? What is he doing? What is the fact that Jesus did that? What does that tell you about Jesus? Compassionate, right? Imagine someone. whatever their condition would be. I don't know. So this is rhetorical, so we don't have to reveal ourselves too much here. But I don't know, what kind of state or condition would a person have to be in for you to hesitate to hug them? I, particularly when I worked as a police chaplain, we had to deal a lot with, winos and homeless and indigent people and so forth. And, I remember getting called to a scene, and it was elder neglect is what it was. And walking into this house, and the windows were broken out. There were no screens. There were squirrels running around inside this house. There was animal feces everywhere. And as the chaplain, my job is to go up to this little old lady who lives there and try and comfort her while they're trying to figure out who the relatives are and make arrangements to get her taken care of and blah, 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 blah. And the stench, her stench was incredible. And so I was anyway, you might not be, but I was battling, I want to show her the love of Christ, but I want to do it from a distance. This leper is one of those people that nobody would want to be close to, that nobody would want to touch. And yet Jesus instinctively reaches out and lays his hand on him. He's empathetic. He's merciful. He's kind. He didn't just see the disease of the person. He didn't just see the physical affliction, but he saw what it had done to him emotionally, psychologically, and he ministered to that. Well, it says, and immediately this man was cleansed of his leprosy. And that means that all evidence of the disease is gone. This man instantly looks healthy and whole. And Jesus tells him to go to the priest and offer the gift that Moses commanded, which is detailed in Leviticus 14, so that the priest can officially declare him clean. And first the person has to make offerings to be declared clean, and then they have to make offerings for their sins, since they haven't been able to worship for weeks, maybe months, possibly years. But this restored this man to his family, to his friends, and worship. So maybe he'd been separated from his family for, who knows, years. And now he can go home. See his wife again. See his kids again. Whatever the situation is, right?